I presented to my local public hospital on Christmas Eve because my husband was so afraid of what was happening to me. I couldn't walk. I had dreadful pain in my hip. He called the ambulance. Ambulance brought me down. Now, up to then, I had never considered ageism in any way. I was 70, but I was a confident, outspoken 70-year-old. Thought I didn't look my age, was always treated with respect and dignity. Unfortunately, in the hospital that morning, I got a moment of insight. And the insight was the way older people are treated at times, treated with a total lack of respect. I was categorised as somebody with a neurological disease and a pain in my back. They didn't listen to what I was saying. They didn't look at the evidence in front of them. I felt totally and utterly degraded, to tell you the truth. And I felt a lack of a respect coming from the medical people, and it was actually quite shattering. I felt totally degraded in the sense that I wasn't being listened to, and that for me was, again, awful. I was used to being listened to. I was used to treating people with respect and being treated with respect. I think that was the least I expected when I went to hospital. I didn't get what I expected. I didn't get an X-ray. I was brushed aside, and that made me feel cross and outraged. But I felt it wasn't the time nor the place to make a scene. So I left feeling frustrated, annoyed, let down by the system. I went to A&E at about 8:30 on Christmas Eve morning, presenting with the classical signs, actually, of a fractured hip. Now, when I went to A&E, I expected to be triaged pretty quickly, seeing as I was brought in by ambulance. That didn't happen. I had to wait for an hour to be triaged. When I was triaged, the nurse actually did not focus on the falls that I had, which I thought were extremely important. She focused on older problems that I had with my back. She asked me about those. She asked me about painkillers. She sort of was not listening to what I was saying. So I felt really frustrated. But I said, look, I'll be seeing the doctor shortly. I'll be able to explain to him. After that, I was put for 2 hours waiting in front of the television. Nobody came along to tell me what was happening. There was no communication whatsoever. Finally, when I saw the doctor, he spent all of 5 minutes with me. He looked at the nurse's notes. Again, he wasn't listening to my voice. He wasn't listening to the fact that I had 2 falls, that I was very worried by the fact I couldn't put any weight on my left side whatsoever. He went off. He disappeared for about a quarter of an hour. I saw him talking and laughing with colleagues. He then came back to me after a quarter of an hour and said to me he was going to put me on painkillers. He asked me, was I satisfied with the treatment I had received? At this stage, I said, what treatment? I received no treatment whatsoever. Now, he seemed to be a little bit taken aback by that, and he said he'd examine. He examined me and again focused on my back, mentioned an MRI, and mentioned the fact that he put me on much stronger painkillers because he could see the pain that I was in. He put me on Palexa, which is a type of morphine. So I wasn't really satisfied with the treatment. I thought the least I should have had expected was an X-ray. But at this stage, I was exhausted. I've been 4 hours in the hospital with no results whatsoever. So my experience was extremely negative. I got in touch with the patient's advocacy service after my operation for a total hip replacement. I had decided that I was going to write a letter of complaint to the hospital concerned. I rang the patient's advocacy service. A lady answered, listened to my story, and immediately I felt I was going to get help with the whole process of letter writing, of meetings, etc. So that is my experience of how I got in contact with the Patients Advocacy Service. They helped me, I think, in 4 different ways altogether. Firstly, the lady informed me about the HSE policy, your service, your story. Then helped me with drafting the letter. The advice I got was invaluable. I got advice on how to make a formal complaint, asking for a clinical review. I was completely helped with the editing, the language, etc. that is used. Again, the lady who helped me talked about advocacy, which I really didn't know anything about. And again, I came to the conclusion that I would need an advocate if I was to go forward with this complaint. For me, there has been a positive outcome. I got what I wanted. I got the apology and the recognition that I had not been treated properly. And I do think they probably listened to what I had to say about treating older people with respect and dignity. It is so important not to talk down to older people. So hopefully going forward, I have made some difference for myself and for people at large.